Canto 3, Chapter 4, text number 343. Bhagavan Svatmamayaya Gatim Tam Avalokyasa Saraswatim Upasprishtya Vriksha Mulam Upasvishat Bhagavan Svatmamayaya Gatim Tam Avilokyasa Saraswatim Upaprishya Vrikshamulam Upavishat Bhagavan Svatmamayaya Gatim Tam Avyalokasa
Bhagavan Svatmamayaya
Bhagavan Svatmamayaya
Lokyasaha
Gatim Tam Avyalokasa
Saraswatim Upasrisya
Saraswatim Upashritya
Mulam Upavishat
Vrikshamulam Premananda
Bhagavan Svatmamayaya
Bhagavan Svatmamayaya
Avalokita
Gatim Tam Avyalokasa
Saraswatim Upasprisya
Saraswatim Upashritya
Shamudam Upavisat
Vrikshamulam
Bhagavan Svatmamayaya
Bhagavan Svatmamayaya Gatim Tam Avalokyasaha Saraswatim Upashrishya Vrikshamulam Upashat
Bhagavan Svatmamayaya
Bhagavan Svatmamayaya Gatim Tam Avalokyasaha
Saraswatim Upasprisya
Saraswatim Upashrishya
Shamudam Upavisat
Vrikshamulam Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead, Sva Atmamayaya, by his internal potency, Gatim, the end, Tam, that, Avalokya, foreseeing, Saha, he, Krishna, Sarvasvatim, the river Saraswati, Upashrishya, after sipping water, Vriksha Mulam, at the foot of a tree, Upavishat, sat down. Translation, the personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, after foreseeing the end of his family by his internal potency, he went to the bank of the river Saraswati, sipped water, and sat down underneath a tree. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. All the above-mentioned activities of the yadus and bhojas were executed by the internal potency of the Lord, because he wanted them to be dispatched to their respective abodes after he had finished his mission of descent, which explains a big part of the previous verse. They were all his sons and grandsons who were given complete protection by the paternal affection of the Lord. How they could be vanquished in the presence of the Lord is answered in this verse, : everything was done by the Lord himself. Svatma Mayaya. The Lord's family members were either incarnations of his plenary expansions or demigods from the heavenly planets, and thus, before his departure, he separated them by his internal potency. Before being dispatched to their respective abodes, they were sent to the holy place of Prabhas, where they performed pious activities and then did some impious activities, and took food and drink to their heart's content. It was then arranged for them to be sent back to their abodes, so that others could see that the powerful Yadu dynasty was no longer in the world. In the previous verse, the word anugyata, indicating that the whole sequence of events was arranged by the Lord, is significant. These particular pastimes of the Lord are not a manifestation of his external energy or material energy. Such an exhibition of his internal potency is eternal, and therefore one should not conclude that the Yadus and Bojas died in a drunken state, in an ordinary fratricidal war. Last sentence is really interesting. Sri Jiva Goswami comments on these incidents as magical performances. Oma Jnana Timarandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chakshurmiritanjena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupakatamayam Tadati Svapadantikam. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktarinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It's already starting to happen. People from faraway places have come. Not so many just yet, but I'm sure more and more and more. I heard the guest list is pretty interesting. And one person knows all of it, and the rest of us know our part. Well, aside from Radha Madhava, but you know. So when I saw Nutama here, I thought, gosh, maybe he should give class, but I just salute to the flag, and she said, no, you give a class. Okay, so I'm giving class. So my respects to Nutama for not giving class. Or sitting in while I'm giving the class when he should be giving the class, or something like that. But there'll be plenty of opportunity to hear from our GBC. The section of the Bhagavatam is Vidura hearing from Uddhava. It's short. Vidura is on pilgrimage, and one of the places he goes on his pilgrimage is Prabhas. And he finds out by visiting Prabhas that the fratricidal war has already taken place and everyone's departed. And when he meets Uddhava, he doesn't tell Uddhava because bearing bad news is not recommended. So he doesn't say. Instead, he asks, how is everybody? How is this one, that one, the other one, the other one, the other one? Especially how are Krishna and Balaram. And as soon as he hears how is Krishna, he goes into trance. Uddhava. He goes into trance. And it's a big struggle. This trance is, he pushed his Krishna button, and that was it. He was absorbed, and he struggled to come to external consciousness to respond, because Uddhava's senior in age, not necessarily senior in terms of his spiritual realization, who can be more realized and more dear to Krishna than Uddhava, other than the residents of Vrindavan themselves. Nonetheless, observing etiquette, and it's not just a formality, it's his nature. He's very respectful to those who are elderly, and that's part of Vedic culture. So he struggles to leave what you might say that's the goal. He's just become immersed in trance, in thought of Krishna. Bell rang. He hit the perfection. He struggles to come to external consciousness and start speaking about the mysteries of apparent contradictions, particularly from his heart's point of view. That's, earlier in this section. He does this, he does that, he does that. It's very difficult. His transcendental emotions are on full display before Vidura. So certainly Vidura, being an elevated person, understands the spiritual emotion and the elevated position of Uddhava, but he doesn't stop. He just goes on for 2.5 chapters, speaking after his wonderment about apparent contradictions in Krishna's behavior and character. Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, Krishna's pastimes out of Vrindavan, and this is the conclusion. Just the verse before was the pastime of, in pastime. We discussed this yesterday morning, the pastime of the Yadu dynasty members departing. And as Prabhupada points out in this verse, actually from the previous verse, Anugyata. Where is it? Anugyata. It's not in the previous verse. Is it in the previous verse? In any case, Anugyata, there it is, the first verse. Not verse number 2, but verse number 1. Anugyata, we discussed this, being permitted. And the way that Prabhupada is rendering this Anugyata term in text 3, the whole sequence of events was not just permitted, but was arranged. Anugyata. Anu means following, and gyata with his full knowledge. This is all happening by, so the term that we used yesterday was his Leela Shakti, and here it's Swa Mayaya. So Swa means his own, and Mayaya, in this case, means his internal potency. So a subset of Krishna's internal potency is Leela Shakti. It's one of the aspects of Krishna's internal potency. And he doesn't have to do anything. He just desires something. And his potencies know what he desires, and off they go, carrying out his desire. So this is a magical performance by remote control. And the controller doesn't have to do anything. He just desires, and his energies do everything. And of course, one of the things we discussed yesterday, worth repeating again, supposing someone doesn't have faith, and they hear these descriptions, are they going to get the right idea or the wrong idea? They're going to get the wrong idea. Supposing they have faith, supposing we're trying to cultivate faith in Bhagavan. Mentioned this yesterday, say it again. Jiva Goswami teaches in Bhagavat Sandarbha, toward the very beginning, in order to understand the Bhagavan feature of the Supreme Lord, Bhagavan, he who possesses bhagas, those bhagas, or the opulences, the potencies of Bhagavan, have two characteristics. They're unlimited and inconceivable. And conversely, if one doesn't accept the unlimited and inconceivable potencies of the Supreme Lord, then one cannot understand Bhagavan. Now, how do we know what those potencies are and what they're doing? Our acharyas give a big assist. I mean, the verse is saying Swamayaya, and Leela Shakti is what is that subset of Swamayaya that's arranging. And from the word for word in first verses, he permitted. And in this verse, text 3 purport, Prabhupada is saying, he arranged. He arranged. The whole sequence of events was arranged by the Lord. And so there, we discussed yesterday, there was multiple purposes. One of them is mentioned here. What did he want to do? I'm going to leave. And before I leave, I want those who came to assist me in my service, because they were asked, the demigods were requested, when they came to Krishna or to Lord Vishnu, please take care of the demoniac kings. Yes, and you take birth on earth to assist me. So now they've taken birth on earth and Krishna is going to leave, and so he wants them to return. Immediately, before he departs, because everyone that has a material body is going to leave their body, but it's his plan. You could script him differently, but it's his plan. He wants them to depart before he departs, and so he arranges it. Anugyata, through his Mayaya. The way in which they departed was not joyful. I mean, from a reader's point of view, was not joyful. So the purpose of Srimad Bhagavatam is not to make us, in the material sense, joyful, but the purpose of the Bhagavatam is to help us understand the loving nature of the Lord's pastimes. So while something may look, what? What's that? There's a loving nature of the Supreme Lord. He invited them. They came. It's now time for him to depart. So he's returning them to the place where they came. Now, it's not with a handshake and a gold medal or something like that. It's in a way that it happened. But it's a loving dealing, and it's a loving dealing. From our worldly vantage point, loving dealings don't always look good, like this one. And there's other ones. We discussed in the past few days some of the other ones. Krishna is telling Yudhisthira, who never tells a lie, to tell a lie, and so forth. That doesn't look good. Krishna telling Arjuna, kill, I want it. Well, there's all these moral reasons. I want it. It supersedes. And so forth, and so on. So it's nice to ask, why? And we may not be able to understand why. But that the Lord wants it is the trump card. And in course of time, by faith and by service and by association with saintly people and hearing again and again, becoming purified through that same process, then slowly we may start to understand. There's a lot of mystery in Srimad Bhagavatam. So if you feel puzzled when you're reading Srimad Bhagavatam, welcome to the club. It's quite okay. Don't feel something wrong with me, and I'm puzzled, and maybe I'm a faithless person, maybe this and that. Just go back to the reset. The reset is Bhagavan has unlimited and inconceivable potencies, and his nature is loving. And he's making pastimes to reciprocate with the loving potential of all living entities. And that's what's meant for us as readers of Srimad Bhagavatam, to discern the fascinating, mysterious, and fascinating way that Supreme Lord reciprocates with his devotees. Or in other words, saying the same thing in other words, this is a person who is worthy of my shelter. Now, pious people have some kind of basic faith, but pious people don't always have strong and unflinching faith. And their faith gets sometimes tested by life and circumstance and, teachings. Why? The big why question. It's okay to ask the why question. You may not get an answer. It's okay to ask the why question. Bhuta Bhavana from England? Young? Yeah? Yes? Yeah. Huh? Yes, African-American disciple of Bhakti Tirtha Swami. He's a smart young man. And he's, anyway, somebody forwarded to me an interview, a podcast interview with him. I was listening to it yesterday while taking prasadam. And he was describing, in his case, he was asking why questions from childhood. And when he got into classes that were special school classes, he was introduced by his parents. This boy likes to ask why questions. Get ready. And he began meditating in a serious way when he was 13, and et cetera, et cetera. So asking why questions is good. You may not get answers. Prabhupada encourages it. The Bhagavatam encourages it. It doesn't have to be only the why question. It can be the how and so many other questions. And it's good to be inquisitive. And part of being inquisitive is being patient, because you may not get the answer, and even if you get the answer, you may not understand the answer. And keep asking the why question. Keep being inquisitive, because what's at the end of that road, or what the nature of that road is to make our connection again with the personality of Godhead, who we have forgotten. And it just keeps going and keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. And is there an end? There's not. It's dynamic. It's not static. And the Bhagavatam helps us in both the asking of questions and receiving of answers. It's the whole methodology of the Puranas is questions and answers. And so we're invited into that realm of questions and answers by having an inquisitive nature. The mind isn't necessarily going to understand something, especially those things that are transcendental. But how do we understand anything anyways? How do you know anything anyways? That's a nice question. If you're a philosopher, it's a standard question. And the shortcut to all of that, we had a little discussion on this. There are three main ways of knowing, and Jiva Goswami, it just expands those 3 ways into 10 ways, but it's resting on 3 ways. And the best way of knowing anything is Aparusheya Shabda Praman. What does that mean? Shabda means sound. Pramana means evidence, or the means of knowing something. Shabda Praman. And the source of that sound is Aparusheya. Aparusheya means beyond the fallibilities of a human. So what makes sound that's beyond the fallibilities of a human? That's the Supreme Person. Supposing you don't have faith in the Supreme Person, you're not going to have faith in a Parusheya Shabda Praman. So do you have access to understanding Bhagavan? No. Not only the door is closed, but the door is locked. So what to do? So what to do is go on Sankirtan. By the process of association with those that have faith, faith can be awakened. That's one of the reasons for having Hare Krishna temples, and not just Hare Krishna temples, having any gatherings where there's Sangha, is reviving the not so strong sometimes faith, or enlivening the existing faith and providing direction for people how to, borrowing from Prabhupada's words, how to remember what we've forgotten, or how to revive our original Krishna consciousness. And Bhagavatam is superlative at doing that. When you start reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, like this section, how to understand it? Swamayaya, Lila Shakti, magical performances. Now, if your faith is not so strong, then I'm not sure about all of this. And if faith is somewhat kindled, let me hear more, let me try to understand. Because we're hearing from Srimad Bhagavatam, this is third canto, we're hearing the pastimes of the personality of Godhead when he appears, and in this particular section, his thought processes, not only what he does, but what he's feeling and what he's thinking, as well as what he does. So what he does is he's sitting by the bank of the Saraswati, underneath a tree, at the base of a tree, and then the next thing is going to happen by mystical performance, or by Lila Shakti, or by his divine arrangement. And you know what comes. It goes back to, everybody here knows the pastime. The pastime that led up to the Prabhas situation. The pastime that led up to the Prabhas situation was an offense. And the persons who made the offense were Krishna's sons and their friends. When they came before the Brahmanas, there was a big sacrifice, a big ritual organized by Vasudeva, and after the ritual, the Brahmanas went to a place to take their meal and be together, and the young boys came before them spoofing. It was just playful boys. Spoofing, pulling the leg, making fun, ridiculing, in a funny way, but the Brahmanas took it seriously. You want to know what is the boy or girl that's beneath Samba's sari? It's the destruction of the entire Yadu dynasty. That's what it is. And then the rest is what happened. So when they found out about the curse, Ugrasena decided, on the advice of Brahmanas, grind that iron lump into powder and throw the powder into the sea, because Dwarka is surrounded by the sea. So that's what they did, except one chunk of iron wouldn't grind. So they threw that chunk of iron into the sea. A fish swallowed the chunk of iron, and the fish was caught by a fisherman. A hunter purchased the fish, and when he opened the fish, he found this chunk of iron in the body of the fish, and he decided, fantastic, I can make a tip to my arrows with this lump of iron. Now, somehow, he was able to take the iron and make it into a tip, whereas the king and his associates couldn't. That was a bit of a mystery. I don't know if you ever thought about that one, but somehow, Yadrishchaya, somehow or other, that's what happened. And the hunter is going to hit Krishna in the heel with one of his arrows, thinking it's not Krishna, but an object that hunters fight or do hunting for. And Krishna died by being hit in the heel with an arrow. Now, do you die from being hit in the heel? It may hurt. And the way that Balaram departed was even more mystical. But that was before Krishna departed. Anyway, so it's his transcendental Leela. And what are we supposed to get from all of this? Is there something practical we're supposed to get? He's amazing. And there's no limit to his potencies. There's no limit to his affection for his loving devotees, although it may look otherwise. He's a person unto whom aspiring for his shelter is very nice. It's meant to stimulate, the Srimad Bhagavatam is meant to stimulate our love and aspiration for shelter in the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his service. And it really works. And there's no, if one is, I want to know kind of a person, there's no limit. Is there a limit? Okay, now I know. I know everything. There's nothing further to be known. The inquisitive spirit keeps going and keeps going and keeps going, and Krishna then reveals more and reveals more, and so forth and so on. The lovingness, the loving quality of Krishna just becomes more and more attractive. And the mystery becomes more and more mysterious. There can be some knowledge of how or why, those questions that one may ask, being inquisitive. But at the heart of it all is Krishna's loving dealings. He wants us to be, again, in our loving relation. And those that are in loving relation, he does with them loving activities that may look otherwise to a worldly person. But it's a very novel way of returning people who are his eternal associates to their eternal abode, and the demigods back to their abode. And they're not whining and complaining, oh, this wasn't nice. You should have done it in a different way. Moralists may go that path, but the devotees who have the awakened loving attraction for Krishna find it just fascinating. I want to say one more thing that's just in relation to this whole pastime, that the pastime starts with an offense. And I've been preparing a lot for the Memorial Day weekend, and just by divine arrangement. The topics of Ramayana, there's multiple ones that embedded within the Ramayana is the same lesson. What's that? Offense is really serious stuff. And the consequences of offense on the outside is quite severe. Without giving the list, we come to Gita Nagari. It's real stuff. And so one should be, on the one hand, we need to progress in spiritual life. We require the association of Vaishnavas. On the other hand, if you get the association of Vaishnavas, and even in fun, like these little boys, they weren't so little, but boys, or others and others and others without the list, the personality of Godhead doesn't take it lightly. There's one of the key verses that's a scriptural foundation for this is in Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. He is in his section where he's speaking or writing about Bhava Bhakti. There's a verse, then there's commentary on the verse. There's a verse that says, even when attains the Bhava Bhakti stage, it can be completely, there's different stages of the consequences of offense, according to the gravity of the offense and according to the gravity of the person who is offended. And you go through, there's different, Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur explains there's gradations. But one of them is, whatever bhava may be there is completely taken away. Whatever the sense of being in relationship with Krishna is taken away. That's a potential consequence. So on the one hand, we need, on the other hand, you offend. There's consequences. Not just, it's one of the 10 offenses. It is one of the 10 offenses. But the consequences can be very severe. The purpose is not to terrify you or something. I'm not a terrorist. The purpose is, be cautious. We want to create a temple where there's abundant opportunity, more and more and more and more and more and more opportunity for association. And I'm sure it's going to happen. I'm sure it's already happening. And I'm sure it's going to happen. And more, put through different mediums, book distribution and everything and everything and everything. More and more book readings, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. More and more devotees, more and more people that are getting sadhu sangha. And then on the other side is, what about offenses against those sadhus? Us and some of the new people that go about, not knowing the consequences, doing what people do, making offenses, criticizing and thising and thating without making the list. So I'm concerned. I'm not worried. I feel training and education is needed to help people understand how to properly behave, because people don't necessarily know how to properly behave when they come into the Sadhu Sangha forum. So we as committed devotees have to be sadhu-like, and we as committed devotees need to model what a sadhu is. And we also need to give training and education so our newcomers, and even in some cases ourselves, get a little polish. And, the ounce of, the ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Everyone knows that one. So training and education on this principle of not just, scare tactics. Better watch out. You're going to get spanked. Not like that, but on the positive side, and there are consequences if that's not heard. And scriptures are filled with it. Come to Gita Nagari and hear some more. And I'm sure besides what I'm going to say, because it's part of Ramayana, because the purpose of Ramayana, as with the purpose of Bhagavatam, but specifically to build character and to teach this is the standard of proper conduct. And the consequences of not meeting the standard of proper conduct can be very extreme. I'll mention one, and then I end. Maybe it's not a good place to end. Maybe I should just stop. Some time back, I've been giving classes to the Chinese devotees on a regular basis, and by arrangement, we've gone through Krishna's pastimes after leaving Vrindavan, from Mathura and then on. So when it came to the Dvivida, who's Dvivida? Dvivida was a gorilla who Balaram finished. And he, Dvivida, went specifically to the province where Krishna had associates, and he was harassing and tormenting, and he wanted to defeat Krishna. Well, Balaram took care of him. Now, Dvivida, it's mentioned, I think it's chapter 67, text number 2, 1067, 2. You don't have to look it up now. But in the purport, it's the BBT, it's not Prabhupada's writing, but the how Dvivida, who was an associate, an intimate associate of Lord Ramachandra. He lived over many long duration of life, but he then became an enemy of Krishna. The mention in the purport was that he made an offense to Lakshman. So I searched and I was relentless. I bothered a lot of people. And I finally got the answer. Yay! And the seed of the offense was Dvivida and his brother. They were twins. Minda was his twin brother. They were the sons of Ashvini Kumaras, as was arranged by the Supreme Lord, to the demigods. Create offspring that can help me in my service. So Minda and Dvivida were brothers, the sons of Ashvini Kumaras, and they were in the intimate association of, I'm looking at the clock, we have to end shortly. They were in the intimate association of Sugriva, and they were devotees of Ram. However, here's the offense. Compliments of two great acharyas in commenting on that verse. One was Sridhar Swami and others Sri Veera Raghava Swami. His offense was when Ram was being introduced to Sugriva as an advisor of Sugriva. Listen to this. As an advisor of Sugriva, he advised Sugriva, just Ram, Lakshman, just Ram. Sugriva complied, and that was the offense. He didn't say something harsh, do something harsh. It was not observing the etiquette of respecting Lakshman. Now, they were just meeting. One could say, gosh, he didn't know better. That was the offense. That led to other offenses, rather than going, come to Gita Nagari, we'll give you the detail. That was the seed. And because of that seed, according to the acharyas, it's for that reason that Sugriva got whooped by Vali. And the cure for that was Lakshman giving him a garland. And then he was victorious. Because Lakshman represents Guru. Just like Balaram represents Guru, Nityananda represents Guru, Lakshman represents Guru. And you offend Guru. It wasn't an offense to Ram, it was an offense to Lakshman. And it was just, pretty mild. Don't offer respect to him. Ram's the one. That offense led to his being susceptible to the bad association later on with Narakasura, and through Narakasura's association, he became opposed to Krishna, wanted to kill Krishna, as Narakasura did. And there's a whole chain of other things you'll hear and come to Gita Nagari. My point is, be careful. And we need to educate and train and educate and, awaken spiritual culture with people, the many, 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 many people that are going to be coming, that are pious people, and that's why they're coming, because they're pious people, and here's a temple. What do pious people do? They go to a temple and worship Krishna with their palms folded, and then do things that may be, detrimental. So we don't want that. You can't put a full stop on that, but we can at least extend, the training of Vaishnava culture. I'm on a soapbox. I'm going to get down off my soapbox because it's time to end. We have to move on. It's really important. It's really important. We have to model it. We have to offer training and education. And expect that there's going to be some violation of that sacred principle of respect. And, have an idea of how to respond when that does happen. Not with a stick in our hand, but in some cases, some kind of strong message needs to be there. And otherwise, nice message to help people understand what culture is. This is Kali Yuga, the age of quarrel and hypocrisy. And we're spreading Krishna consciousness in an atmosphere that, needs some attention, along with the Hare Krishna mantra. Okay, let's see if there's some discussion. Anuttamas first.
First, thank you. It was a very enlightening class. I learned a lot of things. Thank you. Just because we're supposed to inquire, as you said, and we see that sometimes it's hard to find balance. So I'm just wondering if you could add some clarity, because a very important principle you're highlighting about being careful with offenses and all that. So we should be careful to not offend seniors, senior devotees, Prabhupada disciples, gurus, temple authorities, etc. And also earlier talking about we can't necessarily understand the Leela of the Lord, which sometimes we may think also extends to devotees. So those are very important principles. And also sometimes we see it can feed an environment where I can't question other things. Like a senior devotee says, we're going to do this, and I have to go along with it because he's a senior person. Or we've seen in our society some very atrocious things may be committed by people that have positions of authority. But if there's a sense of, well, I don't want to commit an offense, I can't challenge, I can't question, I can't ask, I can't look at it. How do we find that balance between healthy etiquette and not offending people and being submissive and all that, but at the same time recognizing that we're human beings, and within a human culture of ISKCON, we've got a long track record of people in positions that we don't want to offend, but do very offensive things. And how do we find that healthy balance? If you could help us.
Sure. That's part of the inquisitiveness. Is this, so we don't abandon culture to get to the bottom of is this right? We maintain the culture of respect while we continue to ask. I mean, the classic is Arjuna speaking with Krishna. He's not a blind follower. Prabhupada never encouraged that. He also encouraged respect of authority. So those in the position of authority, if they misuse that authority, they're more culpable. They're seriously culpable. And Krishna will deal with that. So it's not like we just cross our fingers and hope that Krishna's going to deal with something that's not, the direction that's not proper or shouldn't be done or something like that. But your question is striking the proper balance or healthy balance. Authority is a principle that should be respected, and the questioning of authority should be done in a manner that's respectful. And how to refine all of that. This is, Scripture helps us a lot. And our founder Acharya will help us a lot. So that, in other words, Mahajano Yena Katasa Panta, how do we go about the balances under the guidance of Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra? We go about asking questions. Take two examples. Why do we do things this way? Like, this, like the example, when I saw you here, I was automatically thinking Nutama should give the morning class. As I went to Premananda, she said, you give the class. So, I'm just respecting, although my sensibility was, that's not the way it should go. I didn't question. It's not like, I have an ambition that I want to give the class. But so it takes intelligence to discern when something should be questioned, when something should not be questioned, the manner in which it's questioned with respect to the principle of authority. And sometimes, some person need to get together that feel strongly about something. Without going into it, there's people that feel strongly about some things. And there's a way to do it respectfully. And in the final analysis, if someone is inattentive, unwilling to, an authority person, just, that's it. Leaders have to be decisive. They can't be forever indecisive because there's different views out there about should you go left or right. You have to be decisive at some point and continue to be open to recalibrating the direction that we're moving in. So from the side of the one's questioning, not to be blind followers, to do question in respectful, in an appropriate, cultured manner, continue asking. And asking is different than demanding. Without giving examples, because it's now 8:30 and we're supposed to do ribbon cutting at 8:30. Premananda, it's 8:30. Do you hear the 8:30 ribbon cutting bell?
Yeah.
We should go. I'm asking you.
Yes, we should go.
Okay, let's go. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.